Johnny and Justin were two simple Imagineers at Disneyland until they dared to ask the question,
"Hey Justin, is Disney diverse?"
Well, Johnny, I'm not.
Oh no, we've angered the mouse!
Stormtroopers, run!
Holy crap, it's a gathering of cookies!
Now, from undisclosed locations within the Disney park, Johnny and Justin record a podcast where they seek to answer the question, is the Disney catalog diverse?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Disney+Diversity. I'm Johnny.
I'm Justin.
And this week we're joined by a very special guest. We're joined by Anthony Thomas.
Yay!
Woo! What's up? Welcome. So Anthony's a really dope person. He's a teacher, a counselor, a financial mentor. He does a lot of great things. Thomas, thank you for being here with us today.
So glad you could have me.
Now, here's the thing, though. As someone with a counseling background who understands like a lot of things like spirituality and whatnot, you must understand that on today's episode, we must be talking about something very, very special. Today, we're talking about
soul.
Woo! We're talking about soul, y'all. So
I feel like I could have added more oomph to that.
A little bit more soul.
It's funny. I've been listening to like our past podcasts, and every time you do that setup, it's always like you're just like so. Disney Princess and the Frog. It's low-key like
I don't know how much steak to put on the grill. You know what I mean?
I know. But low-key's loving it though, because you're putting the thinnest amount possible. You're putting the thinnest amount possible. Like, keeping this lean. You're not getting my full excitement for this.
It's a steak up. I'm putting a steak up on the. Anyway. We're talking about Soul from 2020, premiered on Disney+.
Okay. So here's the thing. So usually we would talk about like we usually our conversation starts with like where were you when this first came out? So like where were you like in 1998 when this came in theaters and whatnot? But this project's a little bit different because this project actually came out recently in December. It was really supposed to come out in June 2006, but due to the pandemic and
2020, dude.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. 2020. Thank you. So yeah, it's supposed to come out in June 2020, but because of the pandemic, everything's going on, it was pushed back, and Disney decided to do a release on the streaming platform Disney+. And so it's kind of like, a holiday special in a way. So Justin, could you give us a brief synopsis of what it was about?
Yeah, Soul is a story of a middle school music teacher named Joe Gardner who seeks to reunite his soul and his body after they are accidentally separated just before his big break as a jazz musician. And Soul is pretty significant for Pixar. This is their first feature film with an African-American lead.
Yeah, big time, which kind of leads me into it. And the probably reason why I want to invite Thomas on, because again, this is our Black History Month episode. So I want to just hear from people because again, after the Prince and the Frog episode, again, Disney hasn't had, say, the best track record with representing characters of African American descent or Black descent and whatnot. But again, they're making strides forward. We talked about like Wreck-It Ralph, and we got to see Tiana there with her natural hair, and that kind of set people on fire. So it's kind of like, again, reinvigorated like some faith in them, like, okay, maybe we can get this right. So as we get ready to start talking about Soul, let me just ask you this. How did y'all first feel when you heard about the project, when you saw the trailer and you knew it was coming? Like, what impressions did it make on you? Thomas, would you like to go first as our guest?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I think it was a teaser. And for the most part, it just showed a man walking and then he fell into a manhole. And I was like, wow, look at that. So I was thinking, because it was a teaser, I was thinking the whole film was going to be shot as him as a ghost. So it's like, okay, here's the first African-American film, and the first thing they're going to do is take away the African-Americanness and make him a ghost. So that was like my first thought on the teaser trailer. And, after that, it was hard to see other releases because of the whole pandemic thing and stuff like that. So, but that first teaser, when I saw it, I was like, man, is this guy, or how much Black are they actually going to show? So that was just my first initial impression.
No, I feel you, because that was one of the major critiques about Princess and the Frog was that like Tiana wasn't Tiana the whole time. She was trapped in the frog's body. So like it's very important to see that facial, those skin tones, those things like that on the screen for representation's sake, and so you can see yourself within those characters. So now that's a valid thing. I heard a lot of people worried about that. What about yourself, Justin?
I had a very similar thought too when I saw the first initial teaser, and like Here's the thing. In terms of this film is directed by Pete Docter. Pete Docter, in my opinion, is probably one of the last few Pixar directors that makes interesting Pixar movies for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like, he did Up, he did Inside Out. So I kind of feel like when I heard about the premise, I'm like, okay, I am into the premise, and I feel like he will bring a very interesting perspective. And he didn't direct this alone. I will get to his co-director Kemp Powers in a minute when we get to that talk. But I'm kind of with Anthony. Like when I saw the teaser and then saw what happened to the main character, I went, wait. So hold on. How long do we have him as a black man on screen? Mm-hmm. Now I'm a little concerned again. So same thoughts. Though I hope Pete Docter will bring something interesting to it, because I tend to find his Pixar movies to be at least inventive. So
yeah.
That's my official thought.
Yeah, because it is kind of crazy when you think about it. It's like he dies as a black man, becomes a white ghost. Okay, all right. For me, honestly, I try to avoid trailers. Like people who know me know I try to avoid that because I don't like spoilers. Because just as a writer's mind, I'll just like when I see something, I will start putting two and two together. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it's about. Blah blah blah. This is where we'll probably go and everything like that. And so I like to be genuinely surprised. So I try to avoid trailers as much as possible. But when I first heard about the project, though, I was excited because again, I didn't see the teaser, but I was like, oh, they're doing something black, and they were calling it soul. So legit, I was like, soul. I was like, oh man, must we get into like the deep parts of our culture? Maybe about soul food, maybe it deals with cooking, something like that. I was legit thinking these thoughts and was really excited for it. But then when I started watching, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. This is different. But again, not saying it was bad, but again, it was just different from what I expected. But that's a good thing. That's part of the reason why I don't watch trailers, because I want to be genuinely surprised. So then when the finally did start rolling out and coming out, I'm watching it and everything like that, I did enjoy it. So I guess this leads us now to first impressions. So sorry, I was about to sneeze right there. So talking about first impressions, like what were your first impressions when you saw it? I know for me personally, it honestly resonated a lot with me, to be honest though. Because again, being a writer, being a YouTube creator and everything like that, having this creative just flow through you, like seeing his passion, I was like, oh my gosh, this like hits me in so many spots and everything like that. Plus, like, I think we all in this podcast do multiple things. Like, again, I'm writing comics, we're doing the podcast, teaching and so forth. Justin, you're film directing, making your own art, doing other podcasts and whatnot. Thomas, you have 18 jobs. Teacher, counselor, mentor, pastor, so many different things. And so it's one of those things where we're all working all the time. And so the message that hits home was like, you want to work and you want to be successful. It was like, are you truly living life? Are you valuing those things moment for moment? And when I saw that, I was like, good Lord, it hits. Because it's not about, this movie wasn't to me about being successful. It's about like, no, value the time that you have. Live life to the fullest. And that really made me like take a step back and like reflect on some things. So honestly, I love the message of the movie because it really hit home. Honestly resonated with me. Brother was tearing up. They got me all the time. I was like, oh God, what am I doing with my life? Oh God, I need to call my mom. Wow, where are you? Oh God. So
Well, Johnny, I also assume because he's a teacher too, that also hit you personally.
Oh, it so did. When he was in the classroom, I was like, oh God, there are children there. He's trying to connect with them. They're not listening. I know that struggle. Oh, wait, he pushed through and connected with one. Oh, he's doing it. Like, trust me. Like,
no, yeah. Me too. I got to jump in on that because me too. As soon as I saw the classroom scene, I'm like, all right, are they going to do it right? Are they going to actually do it right? And the fact that, remember when he got like taken away and he got all caught up in the music and they all looking like, man, wait a minute, you taking it too far. Because when I went into the classroom, coming from Disneyland and finance world, and I'm like, man, I'm about to show you guys how to live. I'm going to teach you how to live. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's going to be great. And we're going to sing Kumbaya. And then they throw stuff in the back of your head. And you're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. It's like, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my talent. And so he was in that same place. He believed that his destiny was through music. And he didn't see the impact that he was making as far as like touching that child. So in that first impression on how the child, even though that little cameo was real short when she had went out and they were dealing in that aspect of you can really reach them even though they may not be paying attention in the classroom, even though you may feel like you're wasting your life and people are looking down on you like, if you're so great of a musician, what are you doing here teaching us type of thing? You are still touching lives, you are still making a difference, and you are still planting seed. So I was like, oh my goodness, not even don't go there on the education part.
No, exactly. That's the thing. That's what resonates so much because it wasn't one of those typical stories of like, dear white lady came and saved us type deal. whereas it wasn't one of those situations because like we don't get many films where there's a black or brown teacher who are going in there. We get like one or two. Where it's like, no, we go back to our communities and we help out, but things ain't all gravy. It doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. It's like, I am here to save you, children. We've been waiting to be saved. It's like, no, it's not like that at all. It's more like you go in there and there's work to be done. And I agree with you, T. That's the scene that resonated most with me too, because like when he's like, I just feel the music. He's like, she like, you get it, right? She's like, I'm 12. It's like, and it was just hilarious. But then later on, she does that exact same thing when she's like blowing the trumpet. She goes all out, and it's like, no, she does get it. She does, but it's just again, it's those like barriers again. You're around your friends, you're shy, you don't want to do that stuff though. But it's like, no, you do connect with these kids, and a lot of times it's like one-on-one stuff, but you do make an impact. But sorry, we're talking about too much teacher stuff, Justin. So like, what was your first impression?
No, I mean, like, no, I think that's good. And I feel like that's the thing that needs to be discussed in this movie in terms of what that means. I will say this: we're going into spoiler territory here. So when we get to Joe successfully getting to that concert, right? He's performing. It's the dream. His mom is there. It's everything he wanted, and he's proving he's good. What hit me the most is the aftermath of that scene where he's walking outside and he's happy, but he's not as happy as he thought he was going to be. And that hit me as a struggling artist and especially filmmaker. You can achieve those things. You get as close as you can to that first step. And then there's something missing and you don't know why. And because it's kind of frustrating because you're close, you're there practically. How come you're not happier? How come you're not what you thought you were going to be when you finally reached this point? And I forgot the name of it was Angela Bassett, I think, voiced this character. I forgot the name of the musician. But when she kind of tells him, like, that's what it feels, and it kind of proves like life is not certain goals and you make it. It's success. Yay, you're happy. It's like, no, you got to keep going. Even when you get to those things, even when you get those things you want, that doesn't mean it's done. You can finally have happiness in your life. You have to keep pushing on with your life and finding other things. And that hit me very much, I have my dream was like being involved with a feature film that had Filipino leads, right? And Johnny knows I'm an associate producer of such a project. And it's a Filipino cast, Filipino-American writer, director, producers, etc. We had a premiere of the film in Hawaii. It won an audience award. It's, etc. I am very proud of that movie. And yet I also feel like, why do I feel like I'm not as fulfilled as I thought I was going to be finishing this project? Even though this is what I've wanted to do since I got into film. And I think this movie nails that feeling as part of it. And I think, like you guys are pointing out, like, life isn't just this, and that. It's all of it. It's the whole package. And you have to acknowledge the whole package, good and the bad. And I feel that's something that's really lovely about this movie. And I think it does that story very well.
No, I agree. Because I think that the other cool thing about it too is, like, again, we're talking about the plot and we'll get to the characters and everything, is that the plot of it's really structured in a way that I think resonates with more people because by him being a jazz musician. So to give it to the background of the film. So when they were originally like going around with this concept and whatnot, and the director, Pete Docter, was like playing this out and everything like that, he didn't plan for it to be an African-American person. He was planning with this probably being like a white guy and everything like that. And he was planning on being a scientist. But then when they decided to make him, they decided to embrace the world of jazz. That's when they started bringing like the black voices and whatnot because they did not want to pull a La La Land. How can we black people? Like, come on now. And so that was part of the reason why they started making him African American. And so they did a really good job here. They brought in like a lot of people. They brought in Kim Powers, who came on to help with the story and become a Keble director and everything like that. And he was only supposed to come on for 12 weeks. but end up staying for the rest of the process though. And they did a lot of things they normally don't do with Pixar. One, they brought in like a cultural committee, and so they brought in like a lot of their black staff and whatnot to come watch and talk about parts of it and everything like that to make sure they were being genuine. They also reached out to actual jazz musicians and had them talk about like a lot of things to bring more authenticity to it. So I give Pixar a lot of credit. They did a lot of the legwork here that we always talk about of like, you know, doing a cultural read and like make sure people are giving their impact here. Sorry, they're giving their input. So they did a lot of the legwork that you're supposed to be doing. So I give him a lot of credit for that. And one of the dope things about him being a musician is the fact that I feel that message reaches more people that your life can't be all about work. Because when we see a businessman working on Wall Street, we're judging him as like, oh, you're just about money. You're just focused on this. You're focused on that and whatnot. But as a creative, it's like you almost feel this loftiness. It's like, well, no, I'm creating. I'm putting something out to the world. I'm doing this. I'm living for my art. It was like, no, you're still living for work. You're still living for yourself. You're not living for other people. You're not going out there. You're not living life. You got to find that work-life balance and everything like that. You have to understand that. So I think by him being a jazz musician, I think it was able for him to resonate with more people and make a lot more impact. So let's go ahead and jump into it now. So let's get into the plot. So how do you all feel about like the plot of all this as it starts to roll along? So we know that Joe, we see his life, we see him teach, he dies, and then he goes and meets 22, arguably the 22nd soul, voiced by Tina Fey, and then he's trying to like get back to Earth and everything like that for this performance, everything like that. So how do you all feel about the overall plot and structure of the story?
I think it was not what I thought it was going to be. If that makes sense. You know, I think that's thing with teasers, right? We mentioned teaser earlier. That the whole point is just to get our eyes to the movie. So when I actually started watching the movie, I was a little surprised and realized, like, oh, so that's what this movie's about. And we're using 22 as kind of a way for Joe to examine his life. And because we have a character who thinks life is pointless. 22 thinks life is pointless. That's why she's been avoiding creating a life. And so that's interesting to me. And the film doesn't do a traditional, like, kind of like we have a major bad guy. You know what I mean? There's antagonists for sure. There's obstacles, but there's no hardcore, like, I am the soul eater and I will destroy, nothing like that big or cartoony. So I found that to be kind of interesting. And I like the idea of using 22 as a way for Joe to re-examine his life. And I found that to be interesting. Specifically when 22, the movie went totally like, whoa, wait, what happened? Right. 22 entered Joe's body and Joe entered a cat's body. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. So that brings us to an interesting point because I want to hear both of your thoughts on it. There was some critique about this, where some people thought that when Tina Fey enters the body and whatnot, because again, Tina Fey is a white woman, and she even says that, like, I have the voice of 40 women or a white woman. Why? Because they find it annoying. It's like, okay, all right. But there was a lot of critique about this where they're saying that as she enters Joe's body, again, it takes away some of Joe's agency. And by agency, I mean, like Tom was like, it takes away him being the driving force behind the movie. It's like he's not the focal point anymore. And then they say, like, she becomes a focal point. And then it also became a critique because people were saying that, like, when she starts to talk about Joe's experience or, like, stuff that he used to do and all those things like that, it's almost like she's, I won't say, like, she's trying to, like, live out being black and everything like that in a way. So that was some of the critique that came out. So I want to hear some of your thoughts on it.
I know it's some people's job to critique, but sometimes they just take it to the ends because a lot of time, what are we talking about here? We're talking about diversification, right? We're talking about Tom Cruise being the last samurai versus just seeing some black people on the screen. It's like that's all we're talking about here. It's like when we talk about representation, and you guys have already mentioned it. It's real. It's like it speaks to the culture. I mean, you could have an all black cast and they're all doing white things, and you're like, man, that's not us. And you totally walk out and be like, man, I didn't feel represented there at all. Just because now, thank goodness that you gave some black people a job, but that didn't represent our culture. And so just the barbershop scene, the fact that that conversation in the bar, man, that's huge in the black culture. So there was so many things that it was like, okay, this is genuine. This is real. And so if people want to, draw straws over Tina Fey being the voice, man, whatever. It's like, okay, all right, what's your point? What's your point? I mean, it's like, just can we get that representation? Because I was raised in a time in which when I saw television, when I saw entertainment, my idea of diversity was, okay, is the girl a blonde or a brunette? It's like, what are we really talking about here? This movie speaks to the culture. That movie spoke to the culture. Can we get movies that speak to the culture? That's what I'd be looking at, more or less, than who's voicing what and all that other stuff.
No, I feel you. I feel you. And so here's the thing, I agree with you, because I think it kind of goes both ways. Like when it comes to like voicing things, like making sure we get like people behind the screen who are like of those backgrounds, those are just job opportunities that lead to like careers and this and everything like that. So that's always why this is important. But the thing about it is, though, is that when you look at the voice cast for this, Justin hinted to it earlier, we already heard there's Angela Bassett, but you look at all the black voices they got here. They got Jamie Foxx, they got Angela Bassett, they got Donnell Rawlings, they got Questlove, they got Margot Hall, they got David Diggs. And then I can keep going. And so the cool thing about it is that they have that diversity behind here where they're making sure they have black characters voiced by black people. So boom, you've checked that box. That's really well done right here. Furthermore, you've also brought in, like you saw earlier, like, dude, those aspects, like with that barbershop scene, it just hits you. And the thing about it is, though, that's just that cultural thing right there where it's like, oh, y'all know. You know now. You know how important that haircut is. Because he's like, I have to get a haircut before I go on tonight. It was like, really? He's like, no. These lines need to be right, son. These lines need to be right. My hairline can't be going back like this. It's like, so again, they understood that. And then the conversation you have there, they hit all those points. So no, I agree with you. Because I think like when Tina Fey starts to do things that he would normally do, people focus in on the black stuff. They were like, oh, she's trying to dance like him. She's trying to do this or whatnot. But no, she wasn't trying to be black. She was just trying to understand Joe and be who Joe is. Furthermore, think about the moment when she has the conversations with the student. Dude, that's her being a teacher. And people don't, no one's really commenting on that, but that's what teachers do. It's like that moment right there, that's teacher culture right there. But again, she's not saying that she's trying to be an educator, but again, she's just living his life in all the different ways that he has impacted everything, all things that he's done. So I agree with you. I don't see it as her like being there being a problem. And also, I don't think she's not I don't think she takes over as the driving force of the film. It's like,
I agree with that. Yeah.
Justin, go ahead and speak to her real quick.
I agree. I don't think she does. I think this is still Joe's story. I think this is still Joe's point of view. And even though at the moment he's a cat, it's still his day, isn't it? It's still his body. It's still his mom that 22 is talking to through him. You know, I love that scene. By the way, the scene with 22 as Joe talking to his mom, played by Felicia Rashad. I think that scene's really great. And I think that's still about Joe more than 22. 22 is a blank slate. That's the thing. I think people get caught up that Tina Fey, a white 40-year-old-ish woman, is voicing 22, but that's not 22. 22 is a blank slate. 22 doesn't know what 22 is. You know, 22 is cynical about life, but through Joe, she's learning that I don't even know what. You know, like I don't even know the gender specifics of 22 at this point. They don't know what they are yet. Right. And through Joe's life, and even through the things that Joe takes for granted in his life, Joe, 22 is understanding life, and Joe's seeing what he took for granted through 22. I think people think, like in that criticism, I think people are forgetting that is still happening. Joe's looking at his life. It's literally his eyes outside of his body. Yeah. And he's seeing his life completely through someone who doesn't take his day-to-day for granted. And I think Joe is learning from that for sure. It's still Joe's story in my heart. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the cool thing about it. Because again, it hits a lot of those because you're right. It almost reminds you like A Wonderful Life, where you kind of live with that. He goes back and like thinks about all things he didn't appreciate, took for granted, whatnot. But here he's seeing it in real time because she appreciates the food. It's like, dude, you get to eat all this stuff and it tastes so good. Right. And you go to experience all these different things like that. It's like, well, yeah, you get to have a friend at the barbershop you can talk to who you never talk to about his life. You only talk to him about jazz. You never appreciated the small impact he was making as a teacher and realize how great that is. And so totally. So like, so when people critique it and say that he's not the driving force, I'm like, no, he is, because this is still all about him and his go. 22 is maybe the B plot. 22 is like the B plot. Yeah, totally. There's a point later on where like he gets mad at 22. And again, so the reason why I bring this up is because if he wasn't the driving force, he would have to be saved by 22. No, he saves 22 at the end of the film. So when she kind of like loses her way, he gets mad or whatnot, he goes back in there to go redeem and go rescue her. He's the
That's right.
hero in the way. Now we could talk about damsel dynamics right here of making her like a damsel in distress and everything. But again, we only had like 2 characters, so I don't feel it's that way because I feel we had a lot of strong female representation here. We had strong female representation with his mom and the people in the people at the sewing shop and everything like that. We had strong female representation with Dorothea, so that was dope to see and everything like that. And so and then even his teacher friend. So again, we had a lot of strong female representation. So I don't think they were just doing the damsel thing here. Because also 22 was just lost for a long time. She's been lost since the beginning of the movie. She's lost for a million years ago. The 22nd soul. Yeah. Also, I'm saying as we get ready to wrap up, I just have one last question. Sorry to cut you off, Justin. No, okay. The big thing about this is though, because again, this is our capstone to our Black History Month, and we started this with Tiana and the Princess and the Frog.
That's what I was going to bring up. I was going to bring that up next. So great. Okay, go ahead.
So the question is like for both of you and all of us, how does this compare to the Princess and the Frog? Is Disney starting to do better with this? Like, how do y'all feel? T, you're a guest. You want to go first?
Yeah, definitely better. Definitely better. 1,000 times better. Because think about all the things that people did gripe about, even all the way down to the name. I don't think you had a problem with any of that in this movie. That's why I think the only thing that people can bring out is just the Tina Fey thing. But way better. 1,000 times better. 3,000.
I feel you.
I think it does help, like you said, they brought Ken Powers in and kept Ken Powers. Ken Powers, if you guys don't know, is the writer of One Night in Miami. And if you have not seen One Night in Miami, it's directed by Regina. Oh King. My God, I'm sorry, I was like Regina King, and like it's great. It's really good. If you like Soul, you should go to Amazon right now and go watch One Night in Miami and be blown away. But that's the thing. Like one of our criticisms with Princess of Frog is you didn't bring enough African American people involved throughout the production. This movie, you feel it. You have kept it as a creative force early on. I think John Baptiste is one of the one of the jazz musicians and has a lot of songs in the film. And there is a difference when you bring that much people behind the project. Yeah, the project did start as a story about an African American man. And I even saw someone, I think it's a guy on TikTok, Straw Hat Goofy, brought up a point that he was like, so it doesn't mean it's the story didn't start as a specific African American story, but they did the work to make sure once they made that choice, and Johnny, as you brought up, he did the research and got everyone as much involved. Yeah, I think it shows. And I think all that, and I think it's a story that knew what it was better than Princess and the Frog. My criticism of Princess and the Frog was you have a mixed message about Tiana. And what was her motivation? And what are you trying to tell kids who are watching that movie? I don't say that. I don't think that's the issue here with Soul. I think Joe's story is clear. 100% clear.
So I guess right now is a good time for us to go into our rating. So as you know, on this program, we rate things as either woke, waking, or sleep as shit. And so woke meaning that progressive is doing a lot of great things, moving the culture forward. Waking means that, it's trying, but it's doing some things wrong, it's dropping short in these areas. Or sleep as shit was like, this is problematic. Oh God, this is terrible. And so those are our rankings. So right now, do me a favor. So we're going to give our rankings and we'll be right back after this.
I did it. I got the gig.
Woo! And we're back, everybody. So we're back with our ratings here on Disney+Diversity, where we rate the movie or franchise or show is either woke, waking, or sleep. Okay, so we're going to reveal ours to the camera in one moment. We're going to reveal it on 3, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, Johnny, put yours up more. Yeah. Oh, look at that. 3 wokes. Nice. I drew a little soul.
Nice. Yeah, look at you. I can't draw as well as you, so I just put like a little Pac-Man ghost. I put like a little Pac-Man ghost.
I like I appreciate that, actually. I appreciate the Pac-Man ghost. That's good.
At the top I put keep hiring black people. Keep hiring black people.
Hashtag.
Usually when I do this, I have to say hire said people. On this one, I will say keep hiring them because you did, and it worked out. So we all gave woke. Anthony, you're our guest. Would you like to say why you gave it woke?
Well, everything that we said. I mean, I feel that there were black people not just in front, even though we're dealing with animation, not just in front, but also in back, and it came out through the movie crystal clear. Shout out to the barbershop.
There it is. Justin?
No, obviously, when compared to Princess and the Frog, I mean, like Anthony said, it's just leaps and bounds. Like, and I don't mean frog leap, I mean like a big old leap that like of improvement and just learning your lesson. Like they learned their lessons from Princess and the Frog, and definitely made a movie that on the surface I can see why you want to criticize it for doing the same thing. And when I heard people wanting to criticize it after it came out, doing the same thing, I said, "Did you actually watch the movie?" Mm-hmm. It's like, did you watch the film? I don't think it did that. I think it succeeded. I think it did a better job of what it was trying to accomplish. And on top of telling a really good story, I think it shows like the Black culture properly. As much as I know. I mean, I'm going off of YouTube more from from the discussions, because you can speak fully on it. But for me, it's like I feel this seemed like the better route than what we saw in Princess and the Frog, and maybe even some of the other things that we watched for this month, Johnny. I have a soft spot for Cool Runnings, but I also was super critical about it in a lot of areas. So I mean, I think where we're at least as of Soul, I think we're in a good spot.
I agree. Like the cool thing about doing this Black History Month episode is that we've got to see like Disney's progression like over the years, because we had like That's a Raven, then we went to the Princess and the Frog, we got Cool Runnings, and what was the other one we did in there?
Cinderella,
1997 Cinderella. And so we're seeing a real leap, not just like we're seeing a leap in all areas. So one, storytelling. Like the storytelling here and the messages here are more powerful, more resonant with people. And there's nothing that you say that's problematic about it. You're not here trying to tell like a young girl she needs to be married to be happy or to like make her goals come true. It's like, no, this is a great message of just like live life to the fullest, value things beyond work. That's a great message right there. Two, we talked about like, again, behind the scenes and everything like that. A lot of stuff that we reviewed this month had very little diversity behind the scenes, sadly. But think about Israel, this had immense diversity behind the scenes, because the moment they said, oh, this is going to be a musician, he's going to play jazz, we're going to make him black. Bring in all the black people. And then just brought in all the black people from Pixar. I was like, what up now? We heard we got making a movie, right? Yeah, let's do this. And so, but they did it right. They did it right. And the thing about it is, though, that culture committee did a great job, because they pointed out all the little nuances of our culture that kind of makes it resonate and whatnot. I know some people have like seen this and they have critiques of it. And the thing about it is, though, everyone is valid to their own opinion and whatnot. But I think overall, this is a great progression forward, and it's doing a lot of great things. Again, like, yeah, you know what, Disney? I just gotta say kudos. I appreciate the work y'all did here, Pixar, the work y'all did here with Soul. And again, I'm looking forward to what comes next. So again, kudos, good job.
Yeah, go Disney.
Yeah. It's one of the few times we get to Justin, you all right? Justin, you okay?
Man, just complimented you too. Dang it.
Woo! Yo, everybody, thank you for tuning in and watching today. We had a blast making it, and we hope you had a blast watching it.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell. All of this will help our channel to grow. And that's all we want to do. We just want this channel to grow so we can reach out to more folks like you.
Exactly. And speaking of growing, our catalog is growing every week. And guess what? We have a brand new episode happening next week. Here's a quick preview.